Kirk, what a season for him. He is one of the most underrated players in baseball for sure. He is a tremendous defender. He is clearly a plus hitter for a catcher. He finished the season with a look at the guy, right? This is one of the best players in baseball. Okay, that's a fact. Okay, I know it's hard to believe. Your casual Yankee fan friend who hasn't watched them play the Blue Jays in the postseason and doesn't watch the regular season, like, this guy's kicking our ass. Yeah, he is. He is fantastic. He finished the season with a 2-homer game in game 162. He starts the postseason with the 2-homer game against the Yankees. And he's just an awesome player. So that was very cool to see Kirk. The other cool thing about Kirk, and we bring Vlad Jr. back into this, is that, and I wrote a little bit about this in my Game 1 recap, is that Kirk and Vlad are the two guys, along with Bo Bichette, who we know is injured, who have been on the 3 postseason teams that got swept since 2020, right? We've talked about this, 2020, 2022, 2023. The Blue Jays getting swept in those 3 wildcard rounds. Vlad had gone 3 for 22 in those games. He had that very memorable toot bland against the Twins where he got picked off at second. And it was like, those were the Vlad moments. It was a collective failure, of course. It's not like we were thinking about Vlad as like some choke artist. The dude's still 26 and he wasn't doomed. But for Vlad, and then, for Kirk, for these guys who did experience these losses with the Blue Jays in the postseason, for them to show up big time in Game 1 was a huge deal. And then for Vlad in particular, which is really what I focused on writing about Game 1, of course, he delivers an even bigger swing in Game 2, which is just like, this was it. This is what we've been building towards. These are swings more than a decade in the making, if not even longer, since he signed with the Blue Jays 10 years ago as one of the most celebrated amateurs of all time, to live up to the hype, to clearly become an MVP caliber hitter, to go through the ups and downs individually and collectively. And then earlier this year, we were like, is a moment like this ever going to be possible? Are we preparing for his last season as a Blue Jay? And even if he does stay around, when is he going to be in the postseason again? And here he is, man. He sure is in the postseason, and he has been absolutely raking over these first few games. And for Vlad Jr., last thing I'll say about him is, before I kick it back to you, is just like, I think about him in the context of his 2 Dominican homies, Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. They all signed in that same class 10 years ago. They've all taken these very different paths with very different teams to get here. And we've already, Soto and Tatis are already out. And we're not going to get to watch them in the postseason. Soto, of course, has had his moments. Tatis, we're still kind of waiting for those postseason moments. But now it's Vlad's turn, and the Blue Jays are in command. And if they keep rolling, we're going to get to see a lot more swings like this. And I am very excited for that to be the case.
The Dominican player that I was thinking about was Devers. Because when you look at the Red Sox, right, and how the whole series against the Yankees, you're like, man, they could really use one more bat. And then you have Vlad, who's sticking around, presumably, until Buster Posey trades for him in 4 years or whatever. Like that's what the money's
Devers
for.
a couple years older, but it's a good point. Yeah,
I understand.
Obviously, with Tatis and Soto, those 3 are like linked forever. Yeah. But no, it's true. It's true. This is the guy. This is, as you tweeted, this is why you pay the man.
This is it. Like they gave him a $500 million contract, and now it's not paid off already, but that swing in Game 2 is what, like $30 million worth of like that was amazing.
Maybe if they win the World Series, I mean, it's certainly going to feel that way. It's hard to quantify that, but it is such a reminder too, where it's like, oh, but his WAR isn't that high. Oh, how much is he really worth? It's like, who cares? You get to this point, you need a dude that can hit the ball over the fence in a huge moment and look cool doing it. That's Vlad Jr., baby.
And he's when his at bats are good, like when he's locked in and he's taking good at bats, it's so he is so dangerous, right? What I have enjoyed about it so far this postseason is like he really has been floating as the best like hitter in the second tier, right? Mm-hmm. Of hitters, or the worst in the top tier, right? But really the best in the second best tier. Like he is not quite at he's not Soto, right? We've said this a million times. He's not Soto, but through these first 2 games, he has looked Soto-y, where you like have to think about the presence of Rafael Devers the entire way through the lineup in the same way that you do, with Aaron Judge or Ohtani or, locked in Schwarber or whatever. I would now like to talk about game 2 and Trey Yesavage. Well, sorry, Kevin Gausman, very good in game 1. Kind of like very important for the Blue Jays to win the Kevin Gausman versus Luis Gil game. That was not shocking, right? That's a game the Yankees probably they did not pin their hopes on that. However, the Max Fried against guy making his 4th big league start game, I think there was maybe higher expectations. And I think it's worth telling, the Trey Yesavage story from the beginning. So he goes to East Carolina University and he is really good there. We interview him at the draft combine last summer, which is preposterous. Gets taken by the Blue Jays in the first round, I believe 20th overall. And he starts this season, 21 years old, starts this season as a member of the Dunedin Blue Jays. I wrote about this, that he made his first start of the season in front of 327 people in the Florida State League.
Great detail.
And
it was probably fewer than that, if we're being honest.
Yeah. I went back and watched some of the clips from the broadcast. I could count 21 non-team employees or scouts pictured behind the dish in the sections that were on camera. And he was pretty bad that day. He walked 6 hitters. He walked 6 Jupiter Hammerheads at Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. He was not sharp. And then less than 6 months later, he is dominating the New York Yankees in a postseason game. He appeared for all 5 affiliates. I guess, is the big league team an affiliate? I guess so. He played in low A, high A, double A, triple A, and in the big leagues this year. And he said something during the press conference that really struck me, which is like, I've met the whole organization, right? And so when you have Trey Yesavage and you compare him with Vlad and Bo and Kirk, right? Like Vlad and Bo and Kirk have obviously been there for longer and have lived this life in the big leagues as a Blue Jay, but no person except like the GM has a better, more comprehensive understanding of the Toronto Blue Jays as an institution and the minor league system than Trey Yesavage. He's played on every team.
Right. At least in this current moment.
In this current moment. Yeah. Like, and I think that is a very, it's obviously a different dynamic, but it's so interesting. He's like, yes, I have thrown to like 14 different catchers this year. I know all the pitching coaches in the organization, and here he is in the big leagues dominating. And let's talk about how he did it, right? It is a unique look. There has been so much written over the last couple of years about, fastball shape and fastball angle. We took something called vertical attack angle, which is the angle through which the ball passes the strike zone, and how the Spencer Striders, Alec Vessias of the world are trying to create this flat attack angle where the ball is rising and stays on plane. What Trey Yesavage's splitter is doing is like the opposite, right? It is creating as steep a vertical attack angle as possible, which when you are an outlier in any regard, it is very difficult for hitters to square it up because they have literally never seen anything like this before. Yesavage made 3 starts during the regular season. None of them were against the Yankees. The Yankees were not able to prepare for Yesavage because the super fancy high-tech hit tracks device they have does not travel on the road. And they went straight from beating the Red Sox in game 3 to getting on a bird to fly to Toronto. And so the novelty of Trey Yesavage, not to take anything away from him, certainly contributed to how dominant he was against the Yankees in game 2.
Yeah, 100%. I think that those words, the outlier, that's really, I think, what has been clear in pitching development. And not that you can't just create good shapes and create good pitches if you have a normal arm angle and normal release, because clearly that happens too. But if you're different, and there aren't, think about how many pitchers teams have now. I mean, they're churning through so many different arms. Like, you would think you've seen almost every kind of arm by this point. But this is a different one. He is as over the top as it gets in the big leagues. And to combine that with the splitter that you mentioned, it is special. And I think it's also an interesting contrast to what we just watched with Cam Schlittler, right? Because what Schlittler did, and what maybe he will get the chance to do again in Game 4, although we'll see about that, is essentially just overwhelm you with velocity, right? It was not necessarily a secret of what his attack plan was going to be if you were the Red Sox. Now, they also had not seen him, so there was a level of discomfort there and unfamiliarity, but he was just overwhelming them. Trey Yesavage was doing that, but he wasn't throwing that hard. He was just throwing in a way that was so unusual, and he was executing that pitch as he has since he basically broke out his sophomore year at East Carolina, where it was like, oh my God, this delivery and this pitch is so weird and so good, and he has enough velocity for it to combine to be absolutely dominant, which is what he was in college. And if you're wondering why in the world does he go 20th overall, in some cases it is because he is weird and because he did have some injury issues that I don't need to get into now, but that is why teams were scared off, because sometimes, teams at this point, it's easy to be like, oh, well, he's different. It's great. We love it. It's winning us a postseason game. It's also the kind of thing that a lot of teams are going to be like, is this going to hold up? Is he going to be able to do this for 200 innings? Is this actually going to fool major league hitters all the time? Well, that doesn't matter right now. And the Blue Jays were correct in being proactive in promoting him and realizing that he was one of their best options. Obviously, they had other injuries that helped move him to the forefront. But clearly, they are reaping the benefits of him being this unique and being this ready to perform in this situation. Now, it helped, too, that he had, gobs and gobs of run support. He could pitch in a very comfortable situation as he, after the first couple innings. And we can flip it over to the Yankees' shortcomings here in a second. But it was the perfect combination. And all the scenes of him embracing and understanding what he had done and seeing his parents there. Like, it was so cool for a dude that, is just barely removed from being drafted. And, it's easy we've seen a lot of guys go straight to the big leagues. I retweeted something from JJ Cooper. We've talked about this, how it's like, man, these guys are just showing up. If you draft the right guy from college, he can make a difference very quickly. This is, of course, a best case scenario in so many respects. And you just, you can't say enough about what he did. And you have to think about, with Schlittler, you wonder, okay, are we going to see him again in Game 4? With Yesavage, just wondering when we could see him again and what that would look like is really exciting.
Playoff debuts like this for youngsters remind me of I was single in New York for 2 years, and I never really had this moment when I was trying to date. It was like, I cannot wait to see that person again. Like, you on a first date, right? And you're like, we hit it off. Like, I can't, when do I get to see you again? That's how I feel about Trey Yesavage right now. I'm like, when do I get to see this again?
Yeah.